Hey guys, it's Bruce. Welcome to ConvoCourses. Every week I talk to you about GRC, cybersecurity. Um, the difference between me and others influencers is that I'm really in this work right now. I do this Monday through Friday. This is my real job. So what I'm going to do today is something a little bit different. I'm going to spend time telling you exactly what I do as a GRC person. Um, And I guess I got to start off by telling you what it is exactly I do. What it is. What's my title? I'm a cybersecurity governance, risk, and compliance professional. And what does that mean? Like when you think cybersecurity, you think a hacker or like forensics, CSI stuff you see on TV and movies. The stuff I do is not glamorous. It's really important. It's some of the more important stuff you do. It's stuff that when it doesn't get done, gigantic organization and all of our information is getting hacked is very important work. We are managing the overall cybersecurity of a whole organization. That is GRC in a nutshell. And that stands for governance, risk, and compliance. Governance is like the information management. That's managing the infrastructure, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, policies, things like that. It's control of the information technology infrastructure. Risk is determining what is the likelihood of threats to exploit our weaknesses. Every organization has weaknesses. Any complex structure has weaknesses. And so, what risk management professionals do within the GRC spectrum is determine what risk we have, what risk can we live with, and how can we minimize those risks. So, it's a lot of assessments, auditing, stuff like that of the IT information infrastructure. And then you got compliance. Compliance is making sure an organization adheres to the nation, state, and industry rules and regulations, which sounds ridiculous. Like it doesn't sound like anything to you, I'm sure. But if the importance of it cannot be understated. And if you want a real world example of why it's important to have compliance with an industry or your local government, just think about whenever you go to Walmart and you run your credit card. So Walmart is in the retail sector. They're a retail industry. They sell goods and products and stuff, right? Mark up the price, get it from manufacturer or whatever. They can when you use your identification, you use your credit card, they are taking that information in and they need to have rules and regulation. They need to have rules in place to protect your information. That's compliance. If they don't have those rules in place, that's when you get things like what happened to Target, where they lost like, I don't know, 3 million records or something like that. So that is governance, risk, and compliance. It's many different jobs. It's a very broad field. So I'm going to tell you what I do on a weekly basis. Daily wouldn't really make sense. It would not cover everything. One of the differences between GRC and some of the other cybersecurity stuff you see that's more technical, like your forensics or your network engineering, security, or something like that, is they'll have like daily tasks that they have to do. And there is sometimes it'll be like more fast paced and routine, or it'll be like they're playing whack a mole, like they have to fix things as they come up. I would say that the workflow of governance, risk, and compliance jobs, especially compliance side, tends to be like a weekly workflow. In a week, on a Monday, you might do something different than you do on a Tuesday and a Wednesday because you have a longer time to do larger projects, if that makes any sense. You're working on projects that are lasting weeks instead of days a lot of times. That's what I'm trying to get at. So let me explain what I do on a weekly basis. So Monday through Friday, right? In no particular order, but just for the sake of making it make more sense, on a Monday, I might have a meeting with my management, the management staff, usually like a project manager type, and my peers, other information system security officers or security people. we get in a meeting and we're like discussing what we're going to do throughout the week. That same day, I might have another meeting with other system team people who are actually in the weeds. People who are managing the firewall or managing the information detection systems or whatever. They're actually the people doing the work and are usually a subject matter expert on one system or one set of tasks that are security related. But sometimes it's not directly security related. Sometimes they are the system administrators. They're the guys who are creating accounts and stuff. And I've got to remain available to them so that if they need a meeting with me, a quick meeting, one off or whatever, to talk about certain things, then I'll have to, divert what I'm doing here and then go and do a couple meetings with them and figure out what we need to do. That might take my whole day. So let's go to a Tuesday. So on a Tuesday, this might be another system team management meeting. This one's management, right? So this one will be me talking to not necessarily the administrators who are hands-on, but the managers of those people. So they're important because those are the people who have more of the operational mission directive of the organization. It's really important to get the big picture from them and relate to them anything that might affect the big picture. So you've got, there's a lot of you'll notice a lot of coordination. So that meeting might spur a whole other different set of tasks. But what we're talking about is vulnerability management. If there's any major changes to the configuration baseline, we're talking about ongoing project issues. If there's any findings that if we had an assessment or something that we might talk about a specific thing. If there's documents I'm working on that I need their help on, and then I would give that to them and they would divert it to whoever. So that's a Tuesday. I'm talking to the management staff, and I'm talking to like the IT management staff or the cybersecurity management staff, or maybe there's a cyber threat intelligence team that I have to talk to, but I'm talking to the management staff. Very, very important because these guys relate big picture items, and then they're the ones who are allocating certain time to teams that will get the job done. So it's a lot of governance there. Another thing I might do throughout the week, let's take it to a Wednesday, is information system security management, overall coordination. One of the biggest things that you do as a GRC person is coordination. And that's not just coordinating with the system management team or your peers, but it's also coordinating with by updating tickets, doing managing and attending briefings. There'll be security briefings. There'll be architectural briefings, like if there's a major system that's coming on board, but it's not going to be there for 6 more months, and they are talking about here's what we're doing so far. Here's the high level view of how it's going to work and how the network mappings are going to go. We're waiting on this particular system to come through. We're talking to this particular vendor. You're sitting in those meetings, and if they need any kind of information from you, or you need to chime in and say, well, what about this and what about that? You're in those meetings as a subject matter expert to make sure that that project includes cybersecurity from you, and then figuring out what work you need to do. There might be some things that you actually need to do early on in a project. So coordination, huge. Another thing, let's take it to a Thursday. And a Thursday, you might do security impact assessments. That's like anytime changes come through on a system, you're figuring out, okay, is there anything that we need to do differently? Has a scan been does a scan need to be done for this particular? Because not all changes require a scan. Do I know about this change, or is this something else? Are they trying to add new software that's not authorized in our environment? If it is authorized, and I'll double check it, make sure it's on our list or whatever, in our database or whatever the case may be. Is that an authorized change? I might have to coordinate with another person to figure out, hey, what's going on with this? Or maybe the person who actually changed it in that ticket, I might contact them and say, okay, is there anything what is this, and they might explain what's going on. Yeah, this is related to this particular system. It has been authorized. Here's my, there might be more information that you need. There might be scanning information. There might be new additional documentation that needs to happen. You're not always one doing all the documentation, but you might have to coordinate with someone else to make sure it's done and make sure everything's done before the actual change takes place. Vulnerability management is another huge part of what we do. So vulnerability management is probably one of the biggest things you do, to be honest with you. It's really throughout the entire week. It's Monday through Friday. You're always doing it, and there's always something going on, especially depending on the size of your systems. So if you are in a very large environment with lots of systems, or a very important system that's all over the world or whatever, you might have a lot of vulnerabilities. And I've been in different environments where there was like a very small footprint where we didn't have that many vulnerabilities, but anyone that we had was very critical because the system was very important. And then I've been in very large environments where there were so many to manage that it could take literally months and months to go through all of them. So what I have to do is prioritize which ones I'm going to do first. One of the biggest parts of our job as a GRC person is prioritization, because you can't possibly fix everything at once. So you got to say to yourself, okay, what is the most important thing that I need to do in this week? What is the most, you might say, okay, I need to attack all the criticals. There's these 5 criticals. I got to make sure that I attack these things because these are the most critical vulnerabilities. You might say, okay, well, I want to focus on the main assets with the servers. Like, these servers are the most important. Everybody's using these. And if we don't fix these, we're going to fail that such and such assessment or whatever. It might be you have to focus on a system security plan because we have a meeting where upper level leadership is going to look through it, and we already know that we have this or that parts of the system security plan or whatever documentation we need to fix. I'm going to focus my time on this. So vulnerabilities are not just technical, by the way. There's process vulnerabilities, there's operational vulnerabilities, there's physical security vulnerabilities. They can come in all shapes and sizes, and we're the ones who have to make sure that it's being done. And even if it's not us that's doing it, we have to coordinate with another organization that is the subject matter expert on doing those vulnerabilities. We're analyzing each vulnerability because every vulnerability is not, it might say, like, you might have a system that automatically detects vulnerabilities, automatically detects shortcomings or whatever, and it'll automatically say, okay, this is a critical. And then you look at it, you're like, this is not a critical because this system's not connected to the internet. So the vulnerability might have been a browser, for example. A browser, it has a critical issue where somebody can just use the browser to get into your website or whatever, the back end of your website. That happens, by the way. And it's saying that it's a critical vulnerability, but hey, this system's not connected to the internet. So this is not a critical, I'm going to coordinate with the team and then explain to them what's going on with this. And maybe we can have this either removed, or maybe we don't even need the browser. We'll remove the browser from this system so we don't even see that vulnerability anymore. So that's the kind of stuff that you do over thousands, hundreds, or even thousands of vulnerabilities throughout a week. So it's probably one of the biggest things that you do in some of the jobs I've done. In the past 4 jobs I've done, vulnerability has been one of the biggest pieces to that. The other one would be risk response. And risk response comes as a result of your vulnerability. And what is that? So it's another name for it is risk treatment, because you're not always going to just hit a button and patch 100 systems immediately. Some systems you can't just patch it with a hit of a click of a button or patching Tuesday or whatever. It's not like an automatic thing. It might be that if we go ahead and hit the button and quote unquote patch all these systems, it breaks our mission, right? So you can't always just send out a patch. You have to coordinate testing, make sure it's good to go. Once it's good to go, then put it out. But even before that, you have to determine, is this something that we are going to do on our system? because it might be that we don't have the infrastructure to do it yet. And now this is where the risk treatment or risk response comes in. We can't remediate it immediately, because if we put this patch out there, it breaks everything. It breaks our actual mission. So you might have to do, there's several other things you can do. You can mitigate, which means we're not going to patch it, but there's something else we can do. We can put a firewall in place, and that doesn't, although that doesn't eliminate the ongoing vulnerability for that software, it does make it so that it minimizes the actual risk, right? It does something else. It might be that we have to do documentation. We can't fix it now, but we can fix it later. That's called an action plan, or a plan of action and milestone, where you coordinate with everybody, all your subject matter experts, the guys who are actually going to patch the system manually or automatically or whatever, the people who maybe there's a privacy part of the component to this, so you might have to have them in there. You're going to coordinate with all the subject matter experts, all the stakeholders for this particular system, and say, okay, what do we need to do to fix this, and when can we fix it? Very important is who, what, when, where, and why of a plan of action and milestone, or action plan. They call it different things, but in the private sector or in the public sector, there's always some sort of an action plan. And one of the biggest components of that is milestones, where you've got who, you've got a point of contact, you've got what happened, why we need a plan of action and milestone. We have a justification of what is going on and how we're going to fix it. We have maybe compensating controls, where we're saying, okay, well, there's a vulnerability, but we have these controls in place that are going to limit the amount of risk, but we are working on it. And then importantly, we're going to update it weekly or monthly, or even sometimes even daily, on what's going on with that, with the actions that are taking place to fix that particular system. That's the milestones. What did we do this week? What did we do last week? How close are we to the finish line? And that's another important piece, is like, when is this due? When is this scheduled to be done? It can always be shifted to the left or the right, earlier or later. But that important piece is that we have a beginning and end, a middle and an end to this action plan to fix this thing. So that's another risk treatment. Another risk treatment or risk response you might do is known as a risk acceptance. That means, like, we know we can't fix this, or we have an old infrastructure, and it's going to take us probably 2 years to fix this. We're doing the best we can. And risk acceptance doesn't mean, or exception, there's different names for it. I've been in organizations where they call it a risk exception, and I've been in organizations where they call it a risk acceptance. Or they have different names for it, but the thing is it's always the same, as where we don't have an action right now. We don't have a project in place. We don't have a plan to actually fix this thing. But what we are going to do is identify what the risk is. We know about it. We are acknowledging it, and we're going to do these other mitigating things in place to manage it as much as possible. But we know this is a problem. We know we can't fix it immediately, but here's more compensating controls that bring the overall risk down, right? So basically, you're documenting, hey, we know about this. We right now we can't fix it. Here's why we can't fix it. Here's some controls that are in place already, and then somebody's signing off saying there's nothing we can do, and here's why we can't do it just yet. So those are some of the risk responses or risk treatments that you have in an organization, and there's many different other ones. The worst thing you can do is ignore it and just have no documentation. Just pretend it doesn't exist. That's the absolute worst risk response you can have. It does exist, but there's other things you can do. There's something called a risk. You can transfer the risk, share the risk. That's where you have another organization come in and help you out with that particular risk. But the point is, a risk response is how the organization responds. And me, as a GRC Govtech worker, this is one of the main things that I do on a regular basis, is vulnerability management, helping with that. And then the risk response. How are we going to respond to each one of these weaknesses that we have in our organization? Throughout a week, Monday through Friday, I have to remain available to users, to managers, to upper level managers sometimes, and to my peers, because they need my expertise on whatever's going on. I'm in the know with the cybersecurity issues of a particular system. So if they really need something done sometimes they can't move forward unless I say yes or no, or figure out like, okay, we need to coordinate with these other people. So it's a very important position, because you're the centerpiece to a lot of different actions. And the reason why this has happened, why you have Govtech GRC cybersecurity people, is that in the past, I've been doing this for a long time. And when we first started out, you'd have organizations just doing whatever. They'd buy a router from Walmart and then just plug it right in. They would do crazy stuff. You'd buy a bunch of systems off the internet, from some other organization, and they'd have modems in them, and then they would just plug the modem right into the wall, and you'd have a LAN going to, a secure LAN, but that's behind a firewall. But then they would plug a modem to the back of the wall, which would give people a back door into systems. That's what happened in the beginning. So risk management framework killed that, where you have to look at every aspect, the security features of every part and component of a system that's going onto your network, because you're managing the risk. It's not always a documentation fix. Sometimes it's hands-on. Sometimes you've got to coordinate with multiple people to figure out how we can fix this particular thing. So that is what I do on a regular basis. I just wanted to give you guys an idea, like, what does a GovTech worker do? What do we do? And in what I've learned, having worked in the public and private sector for multiple industries, is that it's really the same. Like, a lot of it's the same, but they'll use name different information, different naming conventions and acronyms for stuff. But we're doing the same best security practices. And another thing about all of this is, what do you really need to know to do this level of work? To do the coordination of meetings, to remain available, to do security impact assessments. What do you need to know? I would narrow it down to a few things. Number one, you need to have a good foundational knowledge of information technology. There's no way around that. You really need to have a really sound, solid foundation of your IT concepts. Things like cloud technology is becoming more and more important. I myself am studying it right now to get more, in depth on it. I've worked with it, but I don't, I'm trying to get the back end of it a little bit better. Like, I'm actually developing cloud stuff right now just to tighten up my knowledge. But another thing would be client server model, networking, basic networking. You don't have to know routing protocols or anything like that, but you need to know like what they do. Have a good idea of networking, how operating systems work with hardware, and how operating systems work with applications, some basic security features of applications, operating systems, and the hardware and firmware. I know this sounds like a lot, but you really need those fundamentals. Because if the thing is, all the cybersecurity stuff we do is based off of the fundamentals of information technology. That's why I say it's important. Another thing you need to know, I think, is frameworks, standards, regulations. Now, you might be like, what frameworks? The funny thing is, if you've been in IT for some time, you have had exposure to regulations, frameworks, and standards, and you just don't know it. So whenever you do best security practices, whenever you apply patches, whenever you make an account, if you do IAM, even if you do sales, there's certain things that you're doing. You're just doing things, but it's based off of an underlying rule or regulation. And there's many different ones. And if you work in retail, more than likely you've been exposed to PCI DSS. If you work in hospitals, HIPAA, right? If you work in the health, if you work in pharmaceuticals, they have their own GXP stuff. You've got GovTech, of course, is going to be FISMA and NIST 800. So there's different standards you're exposed to, and you just don't know as an IT worker. So if you've been in this space for some time, you've actually been doing the work. You just need to get yourself knowledgeable on what you've been doing, the underlying principles. And if you want to trace those down on what you've been doing, so you can put that stuff in your resume, and become a GRC worker or whatever, you need to look at the policies of that organization you work for, because they usually will reference the regulations and the rules and the standards and the frameworks. So that policy, that security policy in particular, will reference all the things that you've been doing. It's kind of like a policy and procedures and adhering to all compliance. If you want to understand it, have a real world understanding, think of like when you go into a liquor store, they have to have a liquor license, right? And there's certain things that they can do that they can't do. And there's certain things that will make them lose their liquor license for good reason, like things like selling to minors, So there's certain rules of the road that every organization and industry have to abide by. And you, as a GRC person, are knowing those rules and then making sure the organization is abiding by them, because they can lose their license, they can lose their business, they can lose their, there's certain very serious things that if we don't do them in that industry, it's a huge deal. And so that is the job of a GRC person. So you need to know fundamentals of information technology, so you can build on the best security practices by understanding that IT, right? And then you also need to understand what are the regulations of that industry you work in. Number one, like what industry do I work in? Right? All of us are working in some industry. And then that will give you a good foundation of what it takes to be a GRC person. And the crazy thing and the amazing thing is, once you have it under your belt, once you know the regulations that you've been applying as an IT professional or as a project manager or whatever, you can then use those same skills in other industries. That's what it shocked me, that I could go into aerospace with no government involvement. Like, I'm in aerospace working there. I can work in retail. I can work for, you know, hospitals, because all of the fundamentals are there once you know those things: IT fundamentals, best security practices, frameworks of an industry. Once all those things are those pieces are in place, you are a very valuable part of society, because everybody is needing a compliance person these days, especially with your level of experience. All right, I'm going to take some questions, guys. I'm not going to be on here too long. I've got some family stuff I need to attend to, but I'm going to start off with my man Larry. Hey Larry, how you doing, man? He says some of those teams I worked on, that implementation, plan of action, and milestone, frequently run into issues of some of these organizations that are partnered with the government that are not responsive. They don't have a plan of action milestone and won't accept ours. Yeah, it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, you do this, you coordinate with these organizations, you do a plan of action milestone, right? Check the boxes. But that is the challenge right there, is that you're working with departments, even in your own organization, that are not responsive, that are not helpful, do not want to give you information to do simple things like do an implementation statement, like just describe how we're doing SI2, how we're implementing, fixing security flaws, right? They don't want to, you get like a simple question and they're like, oh, I'm busy. I'm doing the firewall. I don't have time, and they'll just ignore you. I have like there's a department within my organization right now that's, they, and I can't give too much information, but wow. So that we have a mixed mode environment where we have different operating systems, I'll just say. So we have an operating system A, B, and C. And A and B are pretty cool, but there's C, I can't get a hold of this guy. Like, I can't get any information on it. I need information on how we're doing our logging. I need information on how I'm not the guy in the weeds doing it. So I really need information. I have to coordinate with them. I can't track them down. I can't get information. We have an assessment and then I have no information. There's blank spots all over because I can't get any information within my own organization. There's a department that is not responsive at all for months and months at a time. And I don't know like what to do. Like, I'll go to their boss. It's just completely unresponsive. I'm getting little bits and pieces of a, and the thing is, that's affecting our whole organization, and there's, what can I do? And I'm chasing, sometimes it feels like I'm chasing ghosts. And it's especially like when, if you're working for organizations outside of, a B2B, like you're working with this organization and you're reaching out and you can't get, for months and months on end, can't get information, and it is affecting your overall cybersecurity. That's part of our job, is that we're trying to contact people, we're trying to coordinate. It's not always cut and dry, right? So as Larry's saying, like, this is a frequent problem, and you can have plan of action and milestones open for months and months because you can't do proper coordination with these people. So that is a problem. Thank you for bringing that up, Larry. And thanks you for becoming a member, man. I appreciate you. Let me see if I have any other questions on any other platforms here. I'm looking on Instagram. Nothing there. Wait a minute. Do I have something there? Yeah, I do. Okay. Let me see. I've got, what are you studying for cloud specifically? What am I studying for clouds? But that's a great question. So this, right now, my whole world is just straight up cloud. I'm doing some deep studying on cloud. I've done FedRAMP. What's weird is that in the last 3 jobs, I've worked with cloud. We have cloud in our environment, based systems in our environment. So I know how to do the governance, risk, and compliance for cloud. I know it's going to sound weird, but I have never implemented a container before. I don't know what it looks like, right? I know how to protect the 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 systems, but I don't know exactly what it looks like. I know basic things, like I know the difference between an on-prem system versus a IAM or a SaaS system. I know, like, basic, but I need to know more. I need to, in order to go deeper into FedRAMP and deeper into some of the stuff that I want to go into, I have to get more technical. So right now, what I'm studying for is the AWS Cloud Practitioner. Like, that's the most basic AWS cloud certification you can do. I'm going through the information. It's very, very straightforward and simple to me because I've had so much exposure to it that I'm like, oh, I'm getting familiar with the terms, basically, and also getting hands-on knowledge. So right now, I started off with the AWS training that they have right on the site. The site has free training that you can do. So I started off with that, and it's just like a light bulb's going off. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting the terminology. I'm getting some of the difference between AWS and Azure. I get exposure to both. I know I've had to protect systems that are based off of Azure and some based off of cloud AWS. And what I'm speaking on, if you are not familiar, is that there's like 10 major platforms, but the top 4, I would say, would be Amazon AWS cloud infrastructure. And then you've got, the next one would be Microsoft Azure. That's their cloud framework. And then another one would be Google Cloud. And then another, off the top of my head, top 4, Oracle. So those are the main. There's other ones like Tencent from China and Salesforce and other cloud platforms, but I'm concerned with like the top 3. So what I'll probably do, my roadmap will be to go ahead and do the AWS certification. I think I'll go like 3 deep. I don't know that I'll do a professional one. I'm not sure if I'll go that deep, but I do want to take their basic ones, and then I might even switch it up and go with Azure. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. Let me see if I got some questions on TikTok. So Major says, so if I want to be a GRC, what do I need to specialize in? So this is what I was just talking about. If you want to do this, I would say it's really going to be perfect for a few different sets of professions right now. If you are in any of these professions, then these are great pivot points for you, because you are developing a very good foundation already. Number one would be if you are on a help desk. If you are doing basic information technology to cybersecurity jobs, you are primed and prepped for this work. There's only one change on there's a change on your resume that will change your life, right? And a couple of things that you need to do. What you need to do if you are starting off, I'm giving you a basic roadmap on where you need to go. Let's say you're an IT person, you're trying to level up, like GRC, damn, this sounds good, or I could do that. So if this is you, what you need to do is go ahead and check out your security policy. The security policy of whatever organization you work for is going to point you in the right direction. Normally, security policy is based off of regulations, standards, and it'll have procedures all based off of those regulations and those standards and those frameworks. In retail, PCI DSS. Healthcare, HIPAA. Banks and financial institutions, Sarbanes-Oxley. And there's another one called Ghibli-Blimley, Graham and Blimley, something like that. No, but it's a regulation. Another one would be if you're in Govtech industry, it's going to be FISMA and NIST 800. If you're in a EU, they've got a couple. They've got GDPR, and then they've got. My point is that you've got these different regulations and frameworks and standards that you need to pay very close attention to. Read them. And then once you read it, if you're in IT, if you've been doing this for a year, once you start reading it, you'll be like, oh, that's why we're doing this. Got it, right? You'll start to see like there's a breakdown of that's explaining why you're doing all these different things. And that's where you need to go if you're an IT professional already. If you're already doing this, you need to take that knowledge, like learn that stuff, right? If you're in healthcare, HIPAA, learn HIPAA, and then figure out how to put that on your resume. How did you apply HIPAA while you're doing IT work? You have applied HIPAA concepts to your actual systems. And then that's what the major change you're going to make on your resume. Right. There's more to it where you need to really advertise yourself. You need to market yourself as a GRC person by focusing on highlighting all the GRC stuff you've been doing, because you've been doing it. You just don't know what you haven't put on your resume yet. Any kind of writing you've done, even from work instructions to standard operating procedures, because it's a lot of communication, coordination that we do as GRC people. And there's not enough of us. And I guarantee if you do your resume right, you advertise, you highlight the certain areas that I'm telling you, it will change everything. Some of the tools that you'll need, if you've ever done scanners before, if you've ever worked with project management tools like Jira, if you've ever coordinated with upper level management, if you've ever worked on a security policy, if you helping to write it or create it. If you've ever done any kind of writing in your organization to explain to another group of people in your organization how something is done, then those are GRC things that you've done. So somebody said, how much do you make? So I currently make $130,000 a year from this job, and that doesn't sound like much. Put to some folks are like, what? I make 180. But here's the thing: I got great benefits. I work from home, and I'm doing something I like to do. I'm doing something that's easy for me. Like I could totally get upwards of right now. I should be making upwards of 200,000, but I'd have to make some moves I don't want to make. So I'd have to do management that could get me there, and I just don't want to do it. I'd have to do. I think if I did some more East Coast type jobs, and what I could do is just take on another job. I could just do it's called overemployment. I could take another job Boom, 200,000, just like that. Which I've done before, by the way. I'm in a place where I'm making the kind of money I want to make, doing work that's easy for me. And, I've got benefits and stuff. I need to be where I'm at right now, right? I might change that up. At some point, if you look throughout all my videos going back in the past, you'll see me in Thailand working. I'll be working, but I'm in Thailand. I've done that kind of stuff before, but it came with a cost, like travel. If I was to travel, if I was to get my security clearance back, there's certain things I just don't want to do right now that I'm comfortable where I'm at, because I'm doing other stuff, right? Like I need time to do other stuff to help you guys to do these kind of videos. There's jobs I had where I can't do this kind of stuff. I can't do, like right now, if I wanted to, I could do lives every day. Right now, if I wanted to, I could expand. I'm trying to right now, what I am doing is expanding my business on my off time, because I do have a little bit of time where, when I'm off, that I'm not like working 24/7 like I have done with some other organizations that paid me a lot, but I was expected to work a lot more hours, a lot more time than I would give, way more than I was that I want to give right now. So I'm doing all right, options is what I have, and that's great. Let me see here. Scroll up, please. Okay, I'm gonna go through some of these questions here on TikTok, and I got you guys' questions here. Just keep in mind, I'm on 4 or 5 different platforms, and I'm getting questions from all walks of life here. I'm going through TikTok right now. Let's see. First question. I'm a cyber ops dude coming from military now, working in the corporate world. What certs? What certs do I need? Okay. The ones that are most marketable is going to be professional level certs. Your CISSP, your CRISC, your CISA, your CISM. Those are going to be the ones that pay the most. And then if you have a specific technology that you're good at, like if it's networking, then it's going to be a professional level cert in Juniper or in Palo Alto firewalls, or in Cisco, CCNP, something like that. Professional level certs is really where you want to focus on. Those are the most lucrative certifications in any field. Like if you're a pen tester, it's going to be OSCP. And they've got one called OSEE, I think. Those are professional level or expert level certifications that you want to gravitate to. Another one is CASP, which is like a generic overarching cybersecurity certification that also pays really well. So cyber ops, CISSP, like probably going to be your next step. That's the one I would recommend, because then you can go different directions. Let me see. Let me get one more question from TikTok. I'm on a podcast and I can't see TikTok chat. No, I can see all of these chats. The only one I have trouble with is Instagram. Sometimes those don't go through for whatever reason. Let's see here. One more question here. Jazz says, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science with 2 years of hospital IT support. Oh shit. That's awesome. I'm having a hard time moving up in my career. Normally, like anytime I've reviewed people's career situation, it's usually their resume. Their resume and their profile is not good enough. And you think that, oh, once I get this certification and once I put it on LinkedIn, I'm good. Right? I'm gonna get all this flood of jobs. No, you got to use massive action. You got to 10x that shit. It's massive action, man. It always works. I'm telling you, it always works. It always works. If you want to get big, lift more. If you whatever you want to do, like you got to do it 10x. You got to massive action. So number one, you got to have a good resume. All right. So let me just walk you through a couple things. Number one, if you're interested, I've got a free. I don't know how long I'm gonna allow it free, because it's very popular. My resume is very popular. But go to ConvoCourses.com and search for my free stuff. You'll see what you're looking for is my resume. download it, and it'll have 4 or 5 other resume templates. It's an ATS style resume, and more importantly, look at the content. Look at how I write it. Another place you can go to cheat and steal is to help your career out is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a bunch of people's resumes to get an idea of what keywords you need to put on your resume. A lot of times I'm reading through resumes and there's just certain keywords people don't have, right? If you're in certain career fields within cybersecurity or IT or whatever part of career, really it works for nursing or whatever job you're trying to get, there's certain keywords that employers are looking for. To know what those keywords are, cheat. Go to LinkedIn and look at other people's resume. Type in whatever job title you have in LinkedIn, and then look at what they are putting on their resume. And it's going to give you a very good idea what you need to be putting on your resume. I'm not telling you copy word for word. Well, that'd be dumb. Like, don't do that, right? I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to cheat. I'm telling you to look at the keywords they're using and apply it where, for example, let's say on your resume you just say GRC. I'm a GRC expert, right? But then you go on there and you're trying to be a Sarbanes-Oxley professional, and you say GRC for banks. And then what you'll notice, you go to resumes, you'll go to people, right? That's what it is. And you'll search through and you'll notice people aren't saying GRC all the time. They're saying the actual framework or regulation or standard, such as Sarbanes-Oxley. If it's for financial institutions, they might put PCI compliance. If it's GovTech, they'll put NIST 800, risk management framework. RMF. These are all keywords in that specific space. They're not using the term GRC necessarily. Not to say you want to leave that off. I'm just saying there's other phrases and keywords you want to put on your ATS style resume that are going to help you out. You already have 2 years in the hospital IT support. You should be looking into what I would do if I were you is I would put a little trick that you could use that I'm surprised more healthcare people don't use this, is there's a huge certification that's out right now. It's called I always got to Google it because I don't remember the acronym, but it's HCISPP, and it's Healthcare Security Certification that's coming through ISC 2 squared. So what I would do is I would start working on my HCISPP, and I would say working on my resume, I'd say working on the HSCISPP, the Healthcare Security Certification. I will put that right on my resume. Like, and you're not lying because you're literally working on it. Go work on it and then put it on your resume. That way, whenever these employers are looking for that particular certification, you'll pop up. By the way, you can do this with CISSP and Security Plus and whatever certification. That's a little tricky. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you, like, there's things that you can do that you're not, right? You're cheating. That's what you. And then another thing is look for the frameworks that are being used in your space. For yours, it's going to be HIPAA and probably HITRUST and some other stuff that healthcare professionals like yourself already are familiar with, right? Medical devices, making sure that those are secure. You want to put those types of things on your resume. There's certain things that you need to put. Now, you don't stop with just a resume, by the way. Now what you're going to do is put it everywhere. Massive action. You're going to put it on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on Simply Hired. You're going to put it on Monster, Dice, Career Builder, USA Jobs. You're going to put it on, like, I would put it on no less than 10 job aggregators. Massive action. Now, warning, this really does work. So you want to be very careful about what personally identifiable information you're putting on your resume. This really works. This really, really works. You're going to get a ton of calls. You don't want all the calls and emails coming from all these people. You get a bunch of people from India calling you. I think what's happening is a lot of times the organizations don't have time to sit there and recruit and sort through hundreds or thousands of employees, potential employees. So what they'll do is hire a third-party hiring agency from India or from another country, right, where they can pay them less money. Then there's all kinds of organizations where people speak English. So there'll be people contacting you from all over the freaking world, right? And not all of these are legit companies. Not all of them. You don't want to take the first thing you see. Don't get excited about it. You're sifting through a bunch of dirt to find gold, right? You don't want everything. You only are looking for one damn job, but you got to sort through hundreds of different possible applicants, right? Because you need to vet them as much as they're trying to vet you. So sort through all of these. There might be different things. There might be, well, I don't really want to work remotely. I need a local job that's local here. Oh, I don't really know firewalls. Oh, I don't like, or this sounds good, but they're not paying enough. Let me see if I can get them. Like, let me see if they can offer a little bit more. What kind of benefits do they have? And maybe the offset the price. There's a lot of different factors. Don't take the first job you see. Don't get excited about the first opportunity that's out there. You need to sort through thousands of them in order to nail that one special job, right? So you need to put yourself on all these different platforms. Be very mindful about what personally identifiable information you put. I don't usually put I do not put my address on my resume personally. Like, I'll put maybe my state. I won't put my address. I don't even use my real name. I'm paranoid. I don't even use my real name. When they ask me, I use an alias. And then when they ask me, when I actually get in the interview, I tell them what's going on. I say, look, here's my full government name, and here I've used an alias. Here's, I just explain it to them. That's kind of extreme. You don't have to do that. I use a different phone number, right? I have like a other phone number that I use. I use a different email that I can sort through. All that's separate through from my main email. I use a bunch of different ways to. It's not, if somebody really wants to hack you, anybody can get it at any given time, right? All you're doing is a deterrent. That's all I'm doing. Like, all a person needs to do to really find you out. I mean, I'm not going to say it here on this live because I don't want it to happen to me. Like, if a person really wants to find out who you are, they can, right? But most people are too lazy. They're not going to take the time unless they're really, really crazy. There's like a 1% person out there that's really crazy, and for whatever reason, they want to, they want to do something stupid, right? And it's half times not even worth their time and effort. Like, you just want to make a deterrent to where they're not wanting. Anyway, I got off the beaten path there. There's a way that you can get a job, and those are the ways to do it. All right, so let me see if I have any other questions. I'm going to take some questions see if I got anything else from Instagram. We suspected automatic behavior on your account. What the hell? That's weird. Instagram wow, what is going on? I don't know. I don't even know if they can still see me on Instagram. All right, anyway, keeping it moving. My man Larry says, he says, makes it so that we have to terminate our contract with them because their lack of proper cybersecurity practices put undue risk on us as an organization. He's talking about like third-party vendor security issues. There's a lot of that stuff been happening lately. I believe some of the major hacks have happened because an organization, I think it was Target, aligned themselves with a HVAC company that put their information out there. They got hacked through an HVAC company, if I'm not mistaken. And that's happening more and more, where you have a B2B, your security is good, but the other organization that you're working with, their security is not tight. They get hacked, and then that hack exposes you to the same to the same vulnerabilities. So he's right. Like that, this is happening more and more. So supply chain risks, it's a huge deal, and it's happening more and more these days. They can't hack if they can't, like, they're going off soft targets. They're going off the easiest prey. It's just easier to go after easier targets, right? It's human nature. We're lazy by now. We want to do the smartest, easiest thing possible. And so you go after soft targets, something easy to hit. And then sometimes you strike luck, because if you hit this easy target, that's a backdoor into the hard target. No pun intended. Talking about Target. Um, Olu says, do organizations already have a template for GRC and all other things needed to do GRC to be a GRC specialist, or just figure it out by research? This is a great question. So yeah, normally Olu, they have some kind of template that they want you to use, right? Especially medium and large size organizations have something that they have a plan of action milestone way to do it. And it's not even, sometimes not even documentation. It's like a database. It's like a content management system. You log into it internally internally in the network, and then it'll ask you all the questions you need. What is the name of the system? What system is affected? What is the problem? What security controls? Here's a list of all the security controls that are related to Risk Management Framework NIST 853. It'll have everything, like it's kind of walking you through all the different things. So that's why a lot of organizations, they want you to be familiar with certain tools, because they're using those tools to help them to create those documents or to maintain continuity and continuous monitoring. So they'll say, oh, do you know, have you ever used EMAS, or have you ever used, I don't know, what's the other ones, Archer, whatever system it is. And what you can do is say, well, I don't know EMAS, but I have used this other system where, I have used ServiceNow, and we were managing our vulnerabilities through this system, and that is similar, that does vulnerability management. That's something you can say on the interview, because a lot of times that tracks, because if you know this system, you can very quickly pick up this other system, or how organizations are doing GRC using these different systems. So yes, they normally have their own internal process. Where I've run into where they don't have nothing, like they don't have an internal process, they don't have templates, they don't have a system that does this, is small organizations. Whenever I've worked with very small organizations or small contracting organizations that work for larger organizations, they don't have like a template or anything. And it's challenging to deal with that. And normally what I'll do is I'll use anything they have. Like I'll say, look, I can write this plan for you, but do you have any old documents that I can build on? Right. And it'll be, some 3-4 year old PDF that was signed, 4 or 5 years ago, or whatever. And I'll use that. And it's a godsend, because it'll tell me everything they're supposed to be doing. And I'll just need to go through it, update the language, make sure it's in compliance with the most recent version of risk management framework, whatever, go through it and validate certain things. I'll say, okay, well, are you guys still doing this right here? I rewrote this whole thing, but I noticed you guys didn't have AC controls in here. I'm going to add these, but I need more information from you. So yeah, small organizations, sometimes they won't have anything. They won't have any documentation. They'll have nothing. And you can build off their old stuff in order to make them a template. Sometimes you just make them a template and give it to them. So that's why, like GRC, the main thing you want to focus on is right now, especially when you're starting out, is what regulations, standards, and frameworks apply to your industry. Right now, that's what you want to focus on. Once you have that in mind, then you want to start talking about, okay, well, how do I implement this? Risk management, NIST 837 says we need to do security categorization. How do we do that? How does this organization do it versus this organization? Then you want to get into that kind of stuff. And then there is a way, like, that each organization does it slightly differently. And once you get an idea of what they're actually doing, it starts to make sense. Let me see here. Got more questions. Again, guys, I'm only going to do about an hour because I got some stuff to do. And I'm going through TikTok. Already answered that one. I work in cloud IAM, but want to transition to incident response or like threat hunting. Thoughts on that? Any tips? The little bit of cyber threat intelligence I've done, that's what you're talking about, I imagine. It I could tell you some of the things you need to know, some of the tools that you can get yourself in, and some of the things you probably need to put on your resume. Number one on your resume, highlight any kind of security that you've done doing cloud IAM. And I know you've done some forms of security, right? And that's going to really help you out because there's a lot of organizations looking for a cloud professional who knows security. I know because I'm when I've been looking for jobs, it's a lot. They want cloud a lot. They really want somebody who knows cloud. They really want somebody who knows cloud. And if you just enhance some of your security skill set, you will it'll help you out quite a bit. So let me see. A couple things that you need to put on your resume or at least learn about is there's a there's certain attack frameworks. There's certain things that you need to know. One of them is called, and I'm Googling right now because I don't know off the top of my head. It's called Attack Framework, and it's from MITRE. I can't remember the full name of it, but one of the things, let me see if I can bring it up here and I'll show you guys on the screen what we're talking about. Because I notice a lot of organizations use this framework. A framework is a set of rules and protocols you use to make your life easier. And here's one of them right here. It's called Attack Framework, and it walks you through. It's a like a matrix that breaks down the most common attacks that are used, the adversarial tactics and techniques that are used in the real world. They're used by hackers. Why this is important is because they kind of use the same patterns. And once you know what patterns there are, it makes threat hunting that much easier. Does that make sense? There's certain things that you're supposed to look for when you're threat hunting, and there's certain responses you're supposed to have. And if you can look at something like this, the attack framework, it'll give you an idea of what organizations who are looking for threat hunters and incident response people, you'll be able to put that on your resume. They're looking for people who know this protocol. And this right here is something you'll already know. A lot of this stuff you'll know, especially if you've done a little bit of research. You'll know that normally hackers use reconnaissance. They use there's certain resources that they use to get privileged access. There's certain techniques that they use to gather credential access and things like that. So that's one of the techniques. There's another one called kill chain. I don't know nothing about that. But just Google that one, figure that one out as well. You might have already done some incident response. You definitely want to put that on your resume. So know this attack framework, look into the kill chain one. Another thing would be some of the tools that they use for threat hunting. So one of them that I have exposure to is called Recorded Future. So if you have any kind of exposure to tools where you're looking in the dark web, and this is one of them right here, Recorded Future. There's a lot of these different tools, and there's a lot of open source tools you can use as well to do threat hunting, where you can get, I don't know if these guys offer a way for you to download this for free. I don't know if this is very, very expensive. And like anytime I've been able to get in access to it, it was from a company. But Recorded Future is one of the things you can use. Another one is called, there's some open source threat intelligence tools that you could use. Like you could freely use it, get to know it, and then put that on your resume, right? And you have exposure to it, so you can literally put the stuff on your resume. But there's some open source threat intelligence tools you want to use. Keywords: threat intelligence, attack framework. These are some of the things that you want to start looking into. And I would learn and study these things, and on your own start do projects, so you can get knowledge of the actual tools that they use and the techniques, and put that stuff on your resume. And then also highlight all the security best practices you've done. And then once you've done all that, you've got that on your resume, you've done some reading on threat intelligence, maybe you've done some projects on your own. This only take you a few weeks to do, right? If you're serious, that stuff's on your resume now. Then what you want to do is start applying for threat hunting, threat intelligence, and incident response type work. Another one you probably want to be mindful of or be knowledgeable of is incident response techniques. Incident response. Let me show you like what I mean here. There's a certain life cycle that incident response has, and it's preparation, detection, analysis, containment, and post-incident activities. These are some of the things that you need to be knowledgeable of, right? Just you with your cloud background, just being knowledgeable of this stuff is going to take you a long way. You got to put it on your resume and then start applying for jobs. You could probably get yourself a junior level position doing this with your background in cloud. Let me see. Do you have any courses that would help learn all the fundamentals of technology? I don't have any fundamental stuff that's, I mean, I have something out there that walks you through the stuff I'm saying right now. You go ConvoCourses.com, you'll see a bunch of my free stuff that walks you through. But I would recommend going to YouTube and then looking for there's got some great stuff on YouTube and Udemy, way better than my stuff, right? I just basically compiled some stuff that I know and put it out there. Like if you're very deep in Govtech risk management framework, then I've got a ton of stuff for you. I've got all kinds of books that you can order right now on YouTube, on TikTok. I got a ton of stuff. For fundamentals, I do have this book, which is a solid look into CIS V8. This is on right now. You can get it on TikTok. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on Facebook. You can get the audio version, the print copy, the ebook. It's all out there. If you are in the frameworks and stuff, like, yeah, my stuff is coming from all my years of experience, and I'm putting it all together for you. So great stuff out there. I've got an ISO 27001 if you want to learn this stuff. I keep it simple. I don't go into a bunch of jargon. I'm telling you exactly what's going on. I'm giving you examples. Just like I speak here is how I'm writing it to you. It's very straightforward. I give you references and places you can go to for more information. Tons of stuff that I have out there. And I think I'm going to take a couple more questions, and now I gotta head out of here, guys. But let me start with this one. How do you go about organizing large, complex security programs to simplify the workflow you have to engage in? What I do is build off of what the industry standards are, and that's what the industry standards are supposed to do, is guide you through a process of how to break it down to simple priorities that you need to do. Like if you're an international organization, this is where you want to go off of. Like if you have a place in EU, like if you have an office in EU, you're working, for an organization EU, they go off ISO 27001. It's really, really solid information. If you are in any industry, can follow this right here, which is CIS V8, right? This breaks down the CIS V8, all the main stuff you need to do. Got some little memes in here. Things like data data protection and recovery. One of the main things that simplifies it the best, one of my favorite ones, and I don't think I have it here right now with me, but the NIST CSF is one of the best simplified methods. I have a book on that one too. I've got the NIST 1.0 is the one that I'm working on. 2.0 right now. That's going to take me some time because it's not just a copy and paste from the stuff that's out there. There's free resources out there. Newsflash. For NIST CSF cybersecurity framework, it's free. Like, just go search for NIST cybersecurity framework. Bunch of free resources that breaks down what an organization who's in GovTech, or actually you can use that one for anything. It's not specifically based off just GovTech. You can use it for a store, a mom and pop store if you wanted to. It is a simplified breakdown of what functions you need to have in your organization, such as how do we identify, how do we govern, how do we identify security issues, how do we detect security anomalies in our organization. You need to have these functions in your, even if you're a mom and pop store, you need to have these functions in your organization. If you have some kind of a network where people are logging in or buying things from you, these things need to be a part of your process. And the NIST CSF says, look, here are the functions you need to have. And it doesn't go deep into how to implement them. That's like that. What my book does is expand on that and says, look, here's how you can do identification. Here's how you can do, here's a plan of action. Here's normally how you would write a security plan. Here's how you would implement that into a policy. Here's, like, it breaks those things down. It doesn't go into like tell you exactly like how to write it, but it does tell you like categories if you are trying to identify weaknesses. What things do you need to have to identify weaknesses? If you're detecting, what do organizations need to have in order to be compliant? What do they need to have to detect anomalies? What protection mechanisms should you have in place? What responses should you have if the system is hacked? So I would recommend, if to simplify it as much as possible, especially if you're kind of have a dubious industry or you're in multiple industries or something, go to the NIST CSF and start from there. Very, very good start. It simplifies it in a great way. It's free. You don't have to buy my book or buy somebody else's book. It's actually free. Just go to Google, type in NIST. Now, if you want more expert opinion, you're gonna have to pay for that. There's no way around it. All right. Florida investor says, I can land a single role I have applied to over one. I can land, or you can't? I can't. Oh, okay. I can't land a single role I've applied for over 1,000 jobs. So normally it's normally the resume. It's normally the resume. Something is going on. Like, every time I get this response, and this is not the only one. I get it a lot. Like, there's probably 10 of them right now on TikTok. So, I can't get a job. I can't get a job. I can't get a job. And then they send me their resume. I'm like, oh, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on. If you want an example of what resume should look like, sometimes it's not the resume. Sometimes it's actually the experience. They just don't have experience. And then I tell them, look, if it's an experience issue, you're trying to get your foot in the door, you got to start small. If you're a mechanic, don't go for a cybersecurity management job. Like, you have to get your foot in the door. That's like going to a mechanic shop and saying, I want to be a master mechanic. I'm an electrician. I want to be a master electrician. Listen, you got to get your foot in the door first. You got to start somewhere. Start with help desk, local help desk, field tech, technical support type roles. Just get your foot in the door. First, get your foot. You might not even want to do this long term. You might not want to do IT security. You might want to do something like, when you get your foot in the door, you'll start to understand how this all works, and you might want to go a whole different route. Got to get your foot in the door first. So if you have no experience, look for help desk, local help desk, type jobs. Not just help, that's just one keyword. Another one's field tech, a big one is to lay cable. Like you can be the guys who hook up the modems. They have to know a little bit of IT stuff. They have to know a little bit of networking. They have to know a little bit about IP addresses. They get some training when they get those jobs. And those guys normally don't have a background in IT. The issue is there is a con is that they have to be in their local area. It's not going to be a work from home job or something like that. It doesn't pay a lot, but they are getting exposure to IT stuff. From there, they can become a network engineer, a help desk person. They can level up in that organization, whether it's with a company like Verizon or Cox or um, whatever internet company is near you. There's hundreds of thousands of them all over the country. So I would start there. Like that's one of the places you can start if you don't have an experience. Now, if you do have experience, you're IT professional and you're trying to level up, and it's your resume. It's for sure your resume. You don't have the proper keywords or key phrases. You've only applied on LinkedIn. Massive action is what it takes. Like you've got one part of it. You've applied for 1,000 jobs. Congratulations. You know it doesn't work. Whatever you're doing right now does not work. So you need to change it up. I would have to see your resume to tell you like which way to go, but I guarantee it's normally one of those two things: experience or the resume is jacked. It's usually one of those things. Without fail. It's one of those things. Um, let me see here. Other questions. Can you explain how continuous monitoring in the cloud will be different from on-prem? Um, you're doing the same things from both of these things for continuous monitoring. The only difference is if it's in the cloud, you have a shared model. So what I mean is the security is shared by the organization who has the data in the cloud. And then there's the other part of the security is by the cloud provider, which would be Amazon or Microsoft or whatever. But it depends on the implementation of your cloud, of your cloud platform. Like if you're a platform as a service or infrastructure as a service or software as a service, but you're really doing the same thing. So first of all, continuous monitoring is not just monitoring scans, right? Not just scanning on a regular basis. It also involves documentation, making sure your documentation is up to date. Your disaster recovery plan is up to date. Your continuity plan is up to date. Your privacy plan is up to date. You're doing the same thing with cloud with that. Probably the implementation will be different because if you have an alternate site with two different cloud containers or something, one's in Egypt and one's in India, whatever the case may be, you probably would include that detail in your disaster recovery plan or whatever. But you're still doing the same things. What is continuous monitoring is, I'll name a couple. Vulnerability management is a part of continuous monitoring. We're continuously monitoring what vulnerabilities are on our system, and then we're taking action on those vulnerabilities. Cloud, whether you're on cloud or on-prem, is going to be the same. You're still looking at vulnerabilities. Like there's vulnerabilities on the system with the cloud. I'm sure if you're completely doing software as a service, that's different because you're not doing the security features. You're working with the vendor to make sure they have but you still have to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, right? Depends on your cloud implementation, I would say. But your vulnerability management, that's one. Documentation, making sure your documentation is up to speed, like it's updated. That would be the same on-prem or in the cloud. Another one would be scans, regular risk assessments. You would do scans on prem just like you would do scans in your cloud environment. So like I said, the only difference would be is if you are doing software as a service where everything's being handled by the third party. But even then, you'd want to get scans from the third party organization who's help. Like if you have another organization who's doing your cloud for you, you would get the scans from them. You would make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, right, to your standard, to whatever standard that is. So the difference would be probably coordination depending on your cloud implementation. I'm just talking off the top of my head about stuff I've done before when working with cloud. Those were the differences. We were pretty much doing the same thing, but if the cloud implementation was done by a third party organization, we coordinate with them to make sure the scans were done. They would send us the scans, like, here's the vulnerabilities right here. Here's stuff we need you guys to do that, we can't do the actual data that's on your systems, but we've done these systems here. Let me see. Quick couple more, and I got to get out of here. Arthur says, I plan to enlist in the U.S. Air Force to finish my computer science degree. My goal is to retrain into cyber, earn certs, gain a TS experience. Plan B, focus on certs, clearance, skill bridge. If I don't retrain, any advice? You said my plan B focuses on certs, finish degree, skill bridge. Okay, so my suggestion would be top of your pyramid here is to get that experience. The most important part of this whole thing is to be a go-getter. When you get in, especially if you've already landed a job doing, I don't know what they call the ASFC these days. And when I was in, it was called 3COX1, but that was a long ass time ago, apparently. They've changed it. They have a different MOS/AFSC now. It's called something different. But if you've already landed the cyber assurance job or whatever they're calling it these days, then your main focus is going to be to get the experience. I'm telling you, it's the most important thing. Just to give you an example, when I got out of the military, the first mentor I had outside of the military was a dude who didn't have any certs and didn't have no degree. And this man had about 4 solid years of doing straight up hardcore IT and electrical engineering work. That's all he did. And then he was the go-to guy for a mission system that we had. He knew everything about the system by doing it. And the most important thing you can do is once you get in to especially if you're in IT, if you have landed an IT job in the Air Force or in any other branch, when you get in, when they tell you, hey, you've been voluntold to put this network together, you're going to be working with these contractors to install this firewall or upgrade the SIEM device, man, you need to, every time you get something like that, it's money. Just think of it as money in the bank, because all that experience is going to be golden for you. Now, let's say you have another MOS. You are like me. You went in, you're a cop, you're a cook, you're service passing out towels in MWR or whatever, right? You're not doing IT work, but you want to do IT work. All is not lost. In your off-duty time, study as much as possible any kind of cybersecurity. Get a degree. They're going to pay for it 100%. Get hands-on, build computers, build gaming systems, make it fun. Use some of your money from your job when you get off work, as passing out towels in MWR or stacking papers for the captain or whatever else you're doing. Use your off-duty time, money, and resources to build your own network, to do tools. And then if you like the military, if you like the MOS or whatever AFSC you're doing, cross-train into computers. What I'm saying is, once you get in, use all of your resources and time and energy to do nothing but focus on getting a degree, getting a certification, but mainly getting experience while you're in. And you can do it even if you don't have an IT job. You'll have to do projects. You can do projects on your own. You can build your own network. You can be a virtual machine master by just messing around on your own. And then when you get out with your degree in IT, at least a bachelor's degree, they're paying for it. I mean, might as well just get a bachelor's, right? With your certifications, with your 2-3 years worth of doing nothing but projects and volunteering IT time, like volunteer as much as possible. Try to volunteer for actual organizations doing the work that building the skill set. You'll be able to take that knowledge and get a job and level up very quickly, especially if you're in some of the hot spots of IT, of cybersecurity and IT. Those hot spots would be places like DMV area, DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area is super hot. Colorado has a bunch of GovTech jobs. Southern California has a bunch of GovTech jobs. Plano, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area has a bunch of jobs. They're all over, but those are like the hottest spots for IT jobs. For GovTech in particular. So I think that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I've been talking for about an hour and a half. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you guys for buying my books. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for following me. Everything. Like, I really appreciate it. That's why I do this. I will be doing this next week. Rain, sleet, or snow. I've been doing these early because I got stuff to do. So I apologize for having this, not having my regularly scheduled programming. But I will be back. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out.